Greetings. I am your host, Bandele Elamin, back again for another video in today's Melanated Weekly News, episode 3. Today's episode, once again, we will be bringing and discussing news from around the world dealing with melanated people. So before we get into our show, please like this video, subscribe, and please share the video to as many people as you can. Before we get into the video, today's book for this episode, once again, is the book Melanated, Navigating Melanated Love and Relationships in the Modern Era. Wisdom, knowledge, and collective thoughts based on our greatest minds, past and present. This book will deal with the melanated problems of love in the modern times and will get your understanding through our ancestors and some of our mentors of today. So as you can see, you have Malcolm X, Raul Nefer Amen, Francis Cress Wilson, even Kevin Samuels. So you have a variety of more and more that will be discussed from the perspective of these great people. All right. So with that being said, let us get into our first video. Today, we're going to be looking at Kwanzaa. Right now it is Kwanzaa season. Abarigani to all of y'all. We're in the last couple of days of Kwanzaa, so it would be very fitting for us to check out some of the Kwanzaa videos that's going on in the United States. So, with that being said, let's check out this video.
Many people continue to celebrate Kwanzaa. 3 young sisters are hoping to bring cultural awareness through their book series. NBC4's Brett Mills sat down with them about what started their journey and their goals for the future.
At the ages of 11, 14, and 15, these sisters are continuing to grow a book series that started out by highlighting a holiday they celebrate and wanted to share with others.
In our schools, they teach us about Christmas and Hanukkah, but our mom would come in and bring little mandazis, which are like little biscuits. She'd come into our school and teach our class about Kwanzaa because that's something we celebrate.
Sisters Zakia, Zalika, and Zahara decided just 3 years ago to start using their voices to bring the diversity of cultures and holidays that people celebrate in the form of their book series, Zakira Presents.
I think it's just important to learn about Kwanzaa and other cultures. So people could have more knowledge about stuff that they might not know.
Their series has books with interactive activities, questions, and conversations that help kids and families learn about holidays like Juneteenth, Ramadan, and a holiday special to them, Kwanzaa. They note the impact they have seen from people who have read these books.
It's also really touching because kids say they see themselves in the book like kids of color, and that's important because a lot of times kids of color don't get to see themselves in books. So the fact that we could do that for a kid much younger than us, we feel is really just important.
Zakira Presents Kwanzaa was the first book they wrote in this series. It was important to showcase their traditions and experiences as well as explain the history of the holiday.
All the candles stand on a special candle holder called a kinara.
Their goal is to get these books in schools across the country, hoping they will help people appreciate all the cultures that make our world unique.
It's really just learning about the world you live in, because if you only know about one culture, you're not going to be equipped when you grow up, because you're going to be dealing with different people from different backgrounds, from different from different places around the world.
And the sisters also say they want to show kids it doesn't matter how old you are, if you have a dream, idea, or a goal, to pursue it because it can come true. Thank you.
All right. Appreciate that story. Like I said, it's Kwanzaa. So if you're not familiar with Kwanzaa, it would be a good time to do that. And, possibly next year you'll be more active in that. But we're going to continue talking about Kwanzaa. Kwanzaa is a very special time for melanated people in the United States, because it truly is a celebration that embraces a lot of the African indigenous practices and seasonal events are in Kwanzaa. So, it's very great to see people dealing with Kwanzaa. I've been to a couple of Kwanzaa celebrations. So it's very important for us to, have this diversity in our community. So let us look. Now let's go across to Philly. Shouts out to Philly for their Kwanzaa celebration. Let's look at the Kwanzaa celebration going on in Philadelphia.
This has been such a merry week, covering all these different holidays this week back to back. Happy Kwanzaa, Fred. I want you to take a look behind us here on Boathouse Road. So this is a project that's been 8 years in the making. With the last administration, a suggestion that they change the houses, light them up with the colors of Kwanzaa, representing freedom, Africa, and hope for the future. That red, purple, and green, that's what it represents. Part of this first day of Kwanzaa was celebrated at the Free Library of Philadelphia in Fairmount Park. The city partnered with the Kwanzaa Cooperative for the two-day event, which included performances educating attendees on the holiday's 7 principles derived from African culture.
It's important for the library to reflect the population of the people we serve every day. And celebrating Kwanzaa is just one way we connect to our community.
The principles are in the Swahili language, based off unifying and helping each community, a sentiment relevant in the 60s when the holiday was first created and still applies today for Lionel Clark.
It's definitely, a great situation when you can see other people that look like you, that have done great things in the world, that are still doing great things in the world.
The father of 4 learned about his African roots through Kwanzaa.
They are rejoicing,
and passed the knowledge down to his daughters, who opened today's event singing the Black national anthem.
We have many aspirations in this life, but we go nowhere without knowing who we are and what we're built on. And family and community, having that foundation being built on the principles, Umoja, Kujichagulia, that's what we're driven by.
This year, organizers are focused on shedding light on the violence taking place on innocent people in Haiti. They want all communities here in Philly to care for Black victims of injustice, even if it's not happening in their neighborhood.
So we have a fuller picture of the beauty of Haiti, not just Hollywood's voodoo, just how much we're indebted to them. The Western world is indebted to Haiti as the first free nation on the Western Hemisphere.
This first day of Kwanzaa was acknowledged outside City Hall early this morning, with community and city leaders lighting the first of 7 candles on the Kinara, which Racine Carbet plans to visit with her young son this week.
Having that history of knowledge of self, so that way moving forward he knows how to navigate throughout this current system, but just also having a sense of pride.
Well, and based off attendance from that event last year, they actually added a second day. So from 12 to 3 tomorrow, they'll be doing more educational events. Sorry, it is chilly out here. Also, the African American Museum is hosting events for the entire days, the stretch of Kwanzaa. 2 notes about these lights. The purple represents the Black color. There are no Black lights, so they want the city to note that when they see red, purple, and green, that is representing Black, just off of technicality. And last thing, they will be rotating this light display between Kwanzaa colors and Hanukkah colors every hour to represent both holidays. All right, Fred, I'll send it back to you. Happy Kwanzaa.
All right. So that, that's another Kwanzaa video that we have. I hope you guys are having a wonderful Kwanzaa. We're going to keep moving on. We've got a lot of information for this week to get into. Our next video we're going to be dealing with is the African American genealogy resources. There's a lot of times that melanated people cannot find their heritage, their genealogy is very hard to uncover due to what we call the Holocaust or being enslaved for a long periods of time. So the disconnect is real. And so this video will basically discuss what's going on with African American genealogy, right? And it's going to discuss even how to maybe research. Let's go.
all of us, irrespective of our racial or ethnic or heritage or national origin, aren't always fortunate enough to have ready and direct access to our family histories. Nearly 90% of all peoples of African descent living in the United States at the time of emancipation were in fact enslaved people. And that is a real challenge. However, what we know is that records do exist. Genealogy matters. We know that it's incredibly important to understand how we as human beings are personally and over time collectively linked through our family histories.
I had never considered researching my family because, we all knew that as African Americans, the records are spotty. There's this thing called slavery that kind of gets in the way of, going down any serious rabbit holes. So once I started up, on the digital side and on my Ancestry account, I realized, that there was a ton of stuff out there that I didn't have access to. So that was sort of the big impetus for this trip, was to just break out of the digital space and just go down there and see if I could find documents that hadn't been digitized. So one of the resources for that obviously was the public libraries. And the one in Spartanburg specifically said, if you're coming here to do research, contact us in advance and we will pull material for you before you get here. And that was the most astonishing thing, to arrive there and have one of the librarians in the local history room already have a full table laid out with books and, computer printouts and all this stuff. It dropped my jaw when we walked up to it and she starts to, show us what she's found. There was so much that was lost, that wasn't lost. It was just kind of buried, and I want to make sure that it doesn't get buried again so that, future generations, I hope that they continue to pass it on.
The most important thing is to begin, knowing that it is a journey, that when you're beginning, it's a journey, it's a first step. I'm really proud of the fact that we have professional researchers and genealogists that every single day we are open to the public. We are also availing them to the public. We have specially trained volunteers that work with individuals to help them on that first step. Every weekday that we're open, we provide twice daily introductions to genealogy to provide folks with a primer of not only the resources that are available within the center on site, but also what are some of those opportunities to explore beyond the walls of the museum.
To know that I came from such humble beginnings and ended up as a college professor and journalist. My mother was an educator, my uncle became a cardiologist. That who would have imagined that any of that would have happened, in a couple of short generations. It just taught me, about the resilience and this whole, the American dream. It exists in a number of ways, and we're a testimony to that.
Very interesting. So, a lot of us that do have doubts of being able to find something, there are resources out here to us that are available right here in our communities. So that is very inspiring. So our next video, we're going to catch up on what had happened to Robert Brooks. Okay. So let us look at this next video dealing with Robert Brooks and his investigation.
These videos are shocking and disturbing, and I advise all to take appropriate care before choosing to watch them.
This is Robert Brooks.
All right.
Brooks being carried into the Marcy Correctional Facility on December 9th.
Do not take lightly the release of this video, especially in the middle of the holiday season. But as Attorney General, I release these videos because I have a responsibility and duty to provide the Brooks family, their loved ones, and all New Yorkers with transparency and accountability.
After getting inside, Mr. Brooks was carried to the infirmary. All of the corrections officers are supposed to have body cameras and activate them with audio. Out of all of the corrections officers, that assisted in this event, only 4 of them activated their body cameras, none of them with audio, probably so you can hear these screams. But the video doesn't lie. This man was handcuffed and assaulted for over 20 minutes by corrections officers in the infirmary, and then they tried stuffing something down his throat. We don't know what it is. You can see his face is bloodied. They pick him up by his collar and then throw him up against a wall. The end result: Robert lost his life that night. Silence is complicity.
So many times in our communities have we had violent deaths by people who are supposed to be working for us and to help protect us. A lot of times it's the police, but in this case, it's another form of police, which is the correction officers in the prison. And so, if you didn't know about this happened a couple of weeks ago. So, we're just keeping up people informed of what's going on, in the United States and abroad. So, we hope this family finds some kind of resolve. And there's other things going on with this story. And so if you guys have any other information about this story, please feel free to comment in the comment section. And feel free to comment about any of these videos that we have talked about or that we're going to talk about. All right. So we're now moving on to the continent of Africa. We're going to look at the continent abroad. We're going to start with looking at the Congo. This video is talking about Congo versus Apple, a $1 trillion lawsuit. I don't know if you guys knew this. This is recent news, so check it out.
Imagine being one of the richest companies in the world and getting sued for $1 trillion US, not by your competitors, not by shareholders, but by an entire country. In December 2024, the Democratic Republic of Congo launched what could be the biggest lawsuit in tech history against Apple. But this isn't just about money. It's about blood minerals, hidden supply chains, and decades of long conflict that has cost millions of lives.
Frema mutugombaneko kwa machache kama mutugombaneko museme twende tukufe.
In just a few minutes, I am going to show you evidence that could shake the entire tech industry to its core. But before we dive into this $1 trillion bombshell, we need to go 30 years back in time. It's 1994. Rwanda is in crisis. The international community asked the DRC to open its borders to let in fleeing refugees, which was done. Unfortunately, other members involved in the genocide also slipped into the DRC. The Rwandan army asked for permission from the international community to get into the DRC so that it can go after these armed members. But unfortunately, when they got into the DRC, they couldn't actually distinguish between those that had fled from Rwanda with Congolese that were on the ground. And so they ended up unaliving many Congolese. And that's when tensions started rising between the DRC and Rwanda. While in the DRC, the Rwandan army discovered huge reserves of minerals that the world has never seen before. And that's how the world came to know about the DRC's mineral wealth, which is valued at about $24 trillion US. But that's not even the issue. At that point, according to the president of the Democratic Republic of Congo, Rwanda made connections with the international community and started exploiting the DRC's minerals.
And Rwanda made contacts in the international community that enabled it to sell these blood minerals. Minerals obtained by using violence against our populations to force them to leave the localities where these minerals are found.
What happens next sets up a chain of events that leads directly to your smartphone. Quick question. Have you ever wondered why your smartphone needs or requires just these specific minerals to function properly? Drop your guess in the comments below. What I'm about to tell you next might make you think twice about your next phone upgrade. These minerals aren't just mined. According to UN reports, these minerals are being mined under the watchful eyes of armed rebels who use profits from these activities to fund and expand conflicts in the Eastern Congo-rich region. Now think about this for a moment. How much of your phone's true cost isn't measured in dollars? And what I discovered while researching this story left me questioning everything I thought I knew about tech supply chains. Data shows that every time there is a resurgence of M23, Rwanda's export of rare minerals increases drastically. Felix Tshisekedi, the president of Congo, has always maintained his stance that Rwanda, and particularly Paul Kagame, is the one behind the illegal extraction of the DRC's minerals. But Paul Kagame has blatantly refused several times that they have never touched the DRC's minerals.
This is not Rwanda's problem. And we are going to ensure that everybody realizes that it is not Rwanda's problem.
But if you look very well, each time M23 launches an attack, the amount of minerals that are produced by Rwanda increases. Now, in 2012, when the M23 was formed, the amount of minerals that Rwanda produced almost doubled. Rwanda left from producing 15% of the world's tantalum to producing 22% of the world's tantalum. In 2013, Rwanda was producing 25% of the world's tantalum. Late in 2013, when things were really heated between the M23 and Congo, the UN struck a peace deal with the M23 and things calmed down for a while. But something happened in 2017. In 2017, the M23 resurrected, but though it was divided into different parts, it started regaining its strength, and by 2022, it launched another offensive. By 2023, Rwanda made the highest amount of money it had ever made from minerals. That's not a coincidence. It's a pattern President Paul Kagame had never accepted. So this is still having a question mark. But here's the kicker. Rwanda barely has any of these minerals in its soil. Now, this is according to the Congolese president, Felix Tshisekedi. As the Congolese president puts it, Rwanda doesn't have even a gram of any of these minerals in its soil. So how does a country with virtually no minerals become one of the world's largest mineral exporters? The answer lies in what happens next. Now, you might be wondering, don't these tech giants have systems that protect this? They are all supposed to. In fact, Apple and other tech giants signed a convention with an international organization known as OECD. Now, the OECD is a due diligence system. This system requires companies to verify sources, to respond to new information. Now, lots of new information have come out during the period when Congo was complaining that they were going through difficulties with their raw materials. Here's where things get interesting. In April 2020, an organization called Global Witness released a report. Their investigation revealed how easily this system was being manipulated. Congolese minerals were being smuggled into Rwanda, much that they were giving Rwandan tax, and as such were declared conflict-free because Rwanda isn't officially at war. How smart. Eventually, they are sold into the world market at premium prices. But here's where Apple's rule becomes unforgivable. They knew about all these system failures. They had signed agreements promising to act on exactly this kind of information. And what they did next, or rather, what they didn't do, makes this story so damning. And wait until you hear how Apple responded to this information. Early in 2024, that is precisely around April of 2024, Apple was approached by the Congolese government about the claims that the Congolese government had against Apple. They explained how minerals smuggled from Congo ended up in Apple, but then Apple gave a deaf ear, despite signing up for the due diligence system, which states that when there is new information, considerable action should be carried out to verify or to change the method of operation. Apple stayed quiet despite the adverts on how they use child labor-free mineral. Apple only made a considerable statement addressing the situation only after it had been sued. Meanwhile, in April, they had ignored the Congolese government. Apple ignored UN reports that stated clearly that minerals were being smuggled from Congo to Rwanda and that were bought by these multinational companies. Apple also ignored the fact that M23 captured the world's largest coltan mine, from which they also get minerals. Apple claims to have the highest standards of responsible sourcing. They even won environmental awards for their commitment to sustainability, all while ignoring 3 major warnings that their minerals were funding conflict. And these warnings were very glaring in UN reports, were glaring in the Global Witness expose, and were also glaring in the fact that the M23 had captured the largest coltan mine in the world, where most minerals from their sources could possibly come from. Every month that Apple ignored these warnings, more minerals were being smuggled, more people were being killed on the battlefield, more child laborers were being used up in the mines, more women were being raped. There was more poverty for the Congolese people. Now, this actually means that each time Apple looked the other way, they wasn't just ignoring reports, they were ignoring human lives, because human lives were going in thousands. And during all these periods, Rwanda's exports of minerals tripled from $373 million US dollars to $1.1 billion US dollars in 2017 and 2023 respectively, all while controlling 0 active mines. That is according to President Felix Tshisekedi. So what does this mean for you, me, and the future of tech? Every device that we use contains these minerals. And as consumers, we have more power than we actually think we do. Here's what you can do. First thing is research the companies you buy from. You can support initiatives for supply chain transparency. And more importantly, share this video to raise awareness. As this lawsuit unfolds, one thing is certain: the way we make our technology needs to change. So what do you think? Should tech companies be held responsible for their entire supply chain? Let me know down in the comment. If you found this video valuable, hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. See you in my next video. Ciao.
Man, that was very, very, very enlightening. You know, the resources in Africa, there's resources in Haiti, the places that melanated people dwell, those resources are very crucial to the way the economy runs, the technology, all these things that's going on. And what will happen if Apple is sued and the Congo actually win against Apple? How would that change the industry? You know, a lot of change is going on in the country, in the world, predominantly in Africa. So, you know, I see this becoming just part of the change that is going on with the exchanging of powers back to African indigenous people from the Westerners. All right. So with that story, we're going to look at Mali. And this is a very important, like I said, a very huge milestone, is to be able to break free from debt among the European powers. So let's look at this video. Let's look at this clip.
This channel. My name is Violetta Mbuelo, and I'm coming to you all the way from Johannesburg, South Africa. To make sure you don't miss out on the latest, make sure you hit like and subscribe. Leave your comments down below. Let's talk. Let's have a conversation. Let's get into it. Here's the story. A model for African economic independence, something great and something new. So Mali's achievement sets an example for other African nations struggling with debt dependency by asserting control over its resources, implementing reforms, and also prioritizing self-resilience. Mali challenges the status quo of foreign-imposed financial systems and the neo-colonial exploitation. I'm going to make this one quick and give you a conclusion, because this is one of the best things. You've heard how Africa is in debt to the Westerners. But this one, Mali's journey to debt freedom, is a statement to the transformative power of the strategic leadership and resource-driven governance. While challenging like political instability remains, this milestone marks a new era of economic sovereignty and also could inspire a wave of financial independence movements across Africa. We've heard about it. South Africa is in debt. Nigeria is in debt. All these African countries are in debt to Westerners. When we are the providers of the minerals that they have, make it make sense, because it doesn't make sense to me. But I think what Mali has done, the president of Mali has done, is such a great example to all Africa, like to all the movement across Africa. It is an example to Africa. It is an example to South Africa, to Tanzania, that we are debt free, so we can start actually making our own movements instead of having to wait and get, because I feel like they get instructions from the Westerners and then they need to be implemented in Africa. We're taking a look at how the life of the Americans and how young children in Africa as a whole have copied the lifestyle. You're seeing that there is, like, no one actually is embarrassed on how they dressed. And if you take a look at the times a long time ago, back in the days where our grandmothers used to cover up, where it used to, when a young person meets up with an elder, you greet. And I feel like as African, we have adapted the Western life, and it is not our thing.
Mali announced on Friday that it had settled all outstanding debts caused by sanctions imposed by West African states after 2 coups in the country. As a result of ECOWAS sanctions, the West African country was unable to settle its debt service between January and July, according to the Economy and Finance Ministry. The announcement on Friday follows the lifting of sanctions decided in early July by ECOWAS leaders after Mali's military junta unveiled a plan to rule for 5 years. As a result of the sanctions, institutions such as the World Bank and the African Development Bank suspended disbursements to Mali, which was notably in default, especially on the West African financial market. The ruling junta gave in to the demands of ECOWAS by publishing a new electoral law and a timetable that includes a presidential election in February 2024.
We cannot be implementing Westerners' life in Africa because we're 2 different people. We have a culture, we have religion, and I'm not saying they don't have religion, but I think it's all about culture-based. We can't be copying things that they do because they really don't work in Africa. An example of the African leader who had said that being gay is a disgrace. Yes, because Africans don't do those things or believe those things. I shouldn't say they don't do those things, but it is not within our culture. And he also had received a backlash from saying such comments, which is a thing that I also feel like one's opinion should matter. If one says they don't believe in certain things, then that's their view, that's their point of view, and no one should be backlash because they said they don't like certain things. But I think what Mali has done and is doing has set such a great example for Africa as a whole. And I hope also you are happy with what Mali has done, because it is a good example. South Africa could take, a look at it and maybe start working with Mali. I am happy to be sharing these news, and I'm going to see you on our next video. Please, please, please make sure you like, subscribe, and leave your comments on me.
All right. So this is a major milestone, people, that it shows that Africa the countries can pay their debt off. And they're doing it because they don't see how it's beneficial to their country. So if you see anything, in this news, in prior news, you can see the things that are happening in the world dealing with melanated people. So let us move on. let's move our story to South Africa, where there are trapped illegal miners, and the people in there are claiming cannibalism. So let us look at this story. Please share your comments and please subscribe and like this channel.
Our next story is from South Africa. The country is fighting an underground war against gangs and criminals who control abandoned mines. For weeks now, several illegal miners have been trapped inside a gold mine in the country's northwest. South African authorities have cut off their food and water supplies to force them out and make arrests. But the South African officials now face a grave dilemma. They've received a chilling letter from the miners. It says that amid the food shortage, many of them have turned to cannibalism. Our next report has the details.
South Africa is fighting an underground war. For weeks now, police officers are guarding an abandoned gold mine in the country's northwestern Stilfontein town. They are heavily armed and deployed around every known exit shaft. Their mission: to capture several illegal miners who've been trapped underground. This comes as a part of South Africa's heavy crackdown against criminal gangs who control the country's abandoned mines. The operation is called Operation Vala Umgodi, which means closing the holes to arrest illegal miners. The aim is to force gang leaders to allow miners to resurface by smoking them out, as one minister has controversially called it. As part of the operation, officials have cut off food and water supplies at the Stilfontein mine, trapping the illegal miners inside. As per reports, some 4,000 miners were initially stuck underground. Hundreds have resurfaced in weak conditions and faced arrest as soon as they appeared. While South African authorities call the operation important, a chilling letter has put them in a dilemma. On Christmas Eve, one of the illegal miners emerged out with a letter attached to him. The letter, written in the local language, mentioned that more of his fellow miners have died in the deep mine shaft and hunger has caused them to resort to cannibalism. They urged the authorities to send more food, which the government had earlier denied. But this letter has reportedly stunned the officials, who took action and supplied food and water to the illegal miners. These illegal miners are locally called Zama-Zamas, that loosely translates to take a chance. They work in closed mines to extract minerals like gold, iron ore, coal and manganese. Zama-Zamas reportedly operate in some 6,000 disused mines. They tend to remain in the mines for long periods, over months sometimes, looking to hit gold and make money. They rely on help from contractors outside who pull them up for a fee. These contractors also supply them with essential supplies. However, most Zama-Zamas are undocumented migrants from neighboring nations like Zimbabwe, Lesotho and Mozambique. Many are believed to be exploited by criminal gangs. The ongoing standoff between the illegal miners and the South African government has revealed the scale of criminal infiltration in the country's mining industry. South Africa was once the world's top gold producer, but aging infrastructure and policy-making failures have forced many commercial operators to shut. These mines have now become the site of turf wars between violent gangs who are competing to smuggle the precious metal. Around 25 tons of gold from South Africa is believed to be smuggled to countries like the United Arab Emirates and Switzerland every year. Though South Africa has decided to go hard on the illegal miners, it has faced criticism from activists and human rights groups. They say the government has no authority to block people's food and essential supplies. So, while South Africa is using starvation as a weapon against criminals, it has landed itself in a catch-22 situation.
Very fast. That's really wild that people are doing cannibalism. We'll be right back right after this message.
Yes, knowledge is for the people. Get your books today on indigenousmoors.org, your one-stop shop for indigenous needs.
we've returned, and we have a couple more stories for you. So we're going to take this story to the southern Sudan, and you know, southern Sudan, like many other places in Africa, have had a lot of problems, and there's even been a separate country called the South Sudan in regards to that, but has not, and it really hasn't been in the news lately. But unfortunately, there are still things going on in the southern Sudan that need to be discussed. So let us check out this video and see what's going on.
Security situation in Tambura town remains fragile. Repeated cycles of intercommunal clashes in the area have caused a significant loss of life and destruction of property. The clashes first erupted in 2021, and despite efforts by state authorities and the United Nations mission in South Sudan to resolve the crisis through dialogue, peace remains elusive. Those who have fled the fighting live in fear of what awaits them if they return. Many are afraid the gangs will seek them out in their hiding places.
The war has displaced us. We have been in the bush for about 2 weeks now. Many people have died in our village of Akpa. The hospital in our area is vandalized. Our local leaders left, and so did we. We don't know the armed men killing our people. We cannot move because we don't have any means of transport to move our children to a safer area.
We are really suffering here in the bush with our children. Whenever I want to go and collect cassava leaves, it is difficult. We just had a gunshot, so we are returning to our hiding place in the bush. The children have malaria, so I want to relocate them to a safe place because if the armed men come here, they will slaughter us.
Most of the displaced are taking shelter near a temporary UNMISS base and several other similar camps. UNMISS on Friday said despite camp returning to Tambura town, they were surveying the area in the hope of diffusing tensions.
We are trying our best from the UNMISS side to monitor the situation, to carry out patrolling in the area, and we are trying to take the situation under control.
Meanwhile, in the northern state of Bahr el Ghazal, UNMISS hosted a 3-day political parties forum. Political parties and civil society organizations in the region agreed on an action plan for holding free and fair elections. The officials signed an agreement on having an inclusive, secure and participatory civic and political space ahead of a planned vote in 2026.
I'm quite sure political parties are going to enjoy the space for freedom of expression, movement, assembly. The same thing with the civil society. We hope to see that Northern Bahr el Ghazal state will register a cases or drop in the incidences of violations around civic and political space.
South Sudan has never had an election. Elections were meant to be held this month, but were postponed in September with the government citing a lack of preparedness. The government said it needed more time to complete procedures such as a census, drafting of a constitution, and the registration of political parties. Caroline B., CGTN.
All right. So let us continue on our journey. This is our last story for the day. Dealing with, ending on a more positive note, as you know, we should. This story deals with what's going on in rural Nigeria, and the title is "The Woman Bringing Hope Through Education in Rural Nigeria."
I'm here to learn. The place is so nice and sweet.
In 2018, I started teaching children for free. Initially, we started with about 30 students, and then right now we have grown to about 300. Today, we have someone that's studying medicine in second year, someone studying engineering in third year. I was posted to a school, and most times people are always running away from teaching because they feel it's very tedious. But coming here to teach opened my eyes to the reality that children face in rural and indigenous community, and how, most girls don't want to go to school. They don't have a desire. Me going to Covenant University, seeing a very beautiful environment in a private university, and then coming down to this rural area where the tables are broken, the chairs are shaking. It's really breaks my heart. I'll gather the children in our area and then just be teaching them. I didn't really know what I was doing, but I just enjoyed it. My parents value education so much. Even though they did not have all the money in the world, they wanted us to get the quality education. And my dad used to say that even if he gives me 1 million naira today, the money will finish, but education, no one can take it from me. Children on the streets, without any care, without going to school, just loitering around.
My village was attacked 2018 during the crisis. I lost my dad, and back then I was 14 years old.
So it's only I and my elder brother that escaped. My dad was killed, and then my mom was in the neighboring house. So they saw her there and they shot her there.
At the IDP camp, no school, nothing. She started with lesson, a little trauma healing classes like that.
I was 18 years old by then, thinking that the following year I would write my secondary school exams. It will not be possible for me to pass the exams, but I saw that lesson will help me go a long way.
Sometimes you sit down, look at everything around you, you feel like giving up, but she'll just come with an encouragement.
The truth is that after that incident, I almost gave up in life. Actually, she's a mother to me because she's the only person that showed interest to helping me.
Aside from the academics, we also have a specialized emotional training classes we carry out to them, building up their level of confidence. The future ambitions for Nazar Akape Foundation is to have tuition-free schools in Africa where we can be able to replicate this same thing in other locations.
I want to be a medical doctor, to study medicine and surgery.
I want to be a nurse because I have great passion for it, and I also want to help the patients, the less privileged too, because I know how it means to be a needy person.
When I got a call from one of them, say, "Oh ma, I passed my work, I did so well." It gives me some sense of belonging and fulfillment and excitement.
All right. So that concludes our videos for today. Much appreciation and love to the family, and we will catch you on our next episode. Until then, peace and love. All right.